So yesterday, or late last night, and it came out this morning, you did your Take It Home show. We delayed it a little bit because we had so much stuff going on this weekend.
Yeah.
And you decided to talk about your favorite matches from the three main shows over the weekend, and then you talked a little bit about Punk in the Elite. And so since yesterday, I think they sort of had a meeting and may have decided some things. There's no public information as far as I can tell about what sort of the next thing that's going to happen here. But I was actually wondering what you thought would actually happen to all of the parties involved in the scrum and the fight and all that stuff.
What's going to be the end result?
Yeah. What do you think? Is anyone going to get in trouble?
There's going to be some fines for sure. Suspensions, possibly. They're not. Well, actually, is it no one are going to be on? None of the people involved are going to be on Wednesday for sure, right? That's already been reported.
That's what we hear.
So
actually, Big Dave reported that, I think. So yeah, that's his reporting. So I'm sure that's true.
Yeah. So I'm guessing there is suspensions. How long? I don't know. When's Arthur Ashe? Is it in 2 weeks?
Arthur Ashe is in 2 or 3 weeks. Let's see.
Yeah, so we're gonna. I would expect them to be back, or at least majority to be back.
September 21st is Arthur Ashe. Yeah.
My hope is that no one gets suspension. No one gets fired, or at least and they can kind of hash it out. Like get everyone in a room and just let them get it all off their chest and try to find some common ground here and get to the facts of everything and where this all went wrong and who said what and just get it out there, because it's an unfortunate situation. But also, like I said on my podcast, I also thought it was a dumb idea to have Punk go out there for this presser. Not just because he just had his match and he's tired, but just like he's upset and grumpy already about a lot of things, right? And especially leading into the last 3 to 4 weeks leading into this pay-per-view, you think he's gonna be just towing the company in line at the presser? He went off, and I'm not surprised he did. So
but the flip side of that is, if he's not there and he just won the title and they're in Chicago, that actually says something as well. And so
we could just say he's hurt. He just had this grueling match. He just was bleeding. He was selling his foot, telling that story. You could say he was scheduled to do this after, but the doctors kind of told him, maybe he's getting checked out, something like that. You could just come up with an excuse for him not to do it.
If the entire build was not about him, I would agree with you. But I think because the show was about him, the show was about the Chicago Sun returning and getting vengeance on after losing very quickly. I think he had to be there. It'd sort of be like if, because these scrums, WWE doesn't always do these, right? They did it in they didn't in Wales.
Yeah.
But it's very prepared. There's no real interviewing going on, no real questions. But I look at it after every single NBA game, no matter if it's a game that doesn't matter in the standings or if it's a big game, most of the big time players are involved. Now, some guys will skip it, if they're what you said, if they're frustrated or they're tired or they're hurt, they very well may skip the press conference. But for instance, if Steph Curry is the top guy for the Warriors and he has a good game or he has a bad game, if word is out that he was supposed to be at the press conference and he didn't go, that's the story. And that's the actual story of the whole thing, is he's just not there. So there was going to be a story if Punk didn't show up because of the build. Now, I think what Tony had thought was he's gonna be happy. Like he's the champion. Like,
I mean,
he was in Chicago. Like what else could we do for this guy?
Like not read him beforehand. He must have talked to him afterwards, and right? I'm guessing you'd have to read this guy even before the show, even weeks before the show, how his feelings are about a lot of things. And I don't know. I mean, I know I'm saying about basketball, but like I'm sure there's been times in the UFC when a guy wins a championship, but he's been so beat up he can't go out there and do the presser after, right? I mean,
Ronda Rousey did not do the pressers when she lost. Brock Lesnar, I don't think, did the pressers when he lost. But Punk didn't lose. He won.
No, I know, but has there ever been like a guy that just decided, even though he won, not to do the presser because he's so beat up, or I mean, even though wrestling's a work, I mean, it was still a very physical match and grueling match. You could have made some excuse not to have him out there. I don't think it'd be, people would be down, but like fuck those pressers. You know what I mean? Like I said on the podcast, and I just think those pressers are just Tony Khan's. He just wants to get his dick sucked by everyone, the press and the boys that he has up there. He wants to hear get all the congratulations and shit. It's just
it's PR. It's PR for them. It's PR for the company. Now there may be some ego involved with Tony, especially if he feels they did a good show. But there have been shows where he's been up there and it sucked, right? Moxley and Omega, the exploding match, right?
yeah.
Like he had to sit up there at that point too and deal with that. So I definitely think there's something to. He's like, yeah, we did something good. Like, let's talk about it. The thing that and this is why I don't like to go. Not that I mean, I'm sure I could get a credential.
Did you go to this one?
No way.
Oh, you didn't.
No way. Not after the last one.
Yeah.
But I mean, I'm sure I could get a credential if I tried or if I wanted.
Easy.
But I specifically don't want to because I feel like I'm co-opted by AEW to create PR for them if I attend these things. And not everyone thinks that way, by the way. Like Andrew Zarian and I interviewed John Alba today, and John Alba's a real guy. Like he's done real sports before. He's sat in at tons of different pressers, and he goes and I don't know his thought. I don't know if he thinks like I do, but he's media, and I saw him actually hung out with him a little bit. But he puts his journalism hat on when he goes to these things, and he was kind of the voice of reason on Twitter about what was really going on because it was chaos. But I think the idea behind them is cool. The reason to have them is actually pretty cool. What it turns out to be. And then the problem is because there's not really any journalists involved. It's really content creators these days, and they're trying to get their stuff right. They're trying to put videos because putting up the videos of this stuff means right? it's part of their how they make money on the internet. So,
well, Dave's there, and a few other credible reporters are there. Like someone asked about Aleister Black, and they just got a no comment.
Yeah, and that's why I didn't go last time.
And that's the frustrating thing too. Like that's why I get frustrated. This happened with something else recently.
It was the MJF thing. That's
MJF thing. Yeah,
that's why I was like, screw these press conferences. Not that I went, but when Dave told me what happened, I was like, how do you not just walk out when they do this giant angle and you ask them and they say no comment? Like I would have walked out. Now again. I come from a different era of that, and I wouldn't consider what I do journalism when it comes to pro wrestling. It's more like analysis and sort of insight, and but I do have like a journalistic mentality to it. Like I'm not out there, sort of making up stuff or anything, of course, but that person in me is just like, how do we I'm sort of talking like out there to the people who I like out there, like Denise Salcedo, Will Washington, John Alba. Like there is I guess you have to sort of be okay with that in order to get to what you want out of that, right? Like, and I'm thankful that John Alba was there because he was like the guy on the scene, and so I was able to talk to him about what he saw when he was there live, some of which you couldn't really see through the the video. So, anyways,
Yeah.
I think Tony Khan really has to rethink these press conferences. I think CM Punk, he chose an unprofessional way to air his grievances. I don't think that he shouldn't have those grievances, but if he's gonna
have been the behind closed doors.
Yeah, if he's gonna be the holier than thou guy, and talk about publicly tweet about have each other's back when Sasha Banks and Naomi get sent home, and then really lay into Adam Page for doing something that he didn't think was professional, and then he literally does the same thing, you lose a little bit of respect from people, I'm sure, from people in his own locker room. But ultimately, I also don't think it's like 100% his problem. Like, Tony Khan's got to put his foot down a little bit. And, I was joking, but this is a real thing, which is, I mentioned this in our Facebook group that, Dave asked him, he's like, this kind of inside stuff that you guys do. And Tony's like, yeah, I don't remember his exact quote, but it was something to the point of like, it creates interest, right? Fans are intrigued. Fans are interested when guys talk like that. And Dave mentioned, it's kind of like a little Brett Shawn-ish. And my main failure, I'm sort of Monday morning quarterbacking myself. My main failure was not to follow up and say, okay, but what happens if it goes to a different level? Like, what happens if it does actually get personal? What happens if it becomes Sammy and Eddie? Like, do you pull back? Like, what's, how can you keep doing? Like, and I didn't follow up with that question, and that's my fault, because we saw the culmination of all of it in that press conference.
Yeah, we sure did.
So my hope, and this only happens really in entertainment. I'm sure in some companies, the top salesman in the company can probably get away with some stuff. I don't know if he could publicly lambast his colleagues, on camera right in front of his boss. But in entertainment, I think you kind of like your top guys get away with this, and I'd really be surprised if CM Punk was fired, or if there was some sort of agreement that he and Tony come to, and just like, okay, we're just gonna shake hands and say goodbye for now. I would expect a suspension. I think the frustrating thing for Tony is he finally felt that he had his horses and he was going to do all of the things he wanted to do before everyone got hurt, and this was going to be the time, and now he's got to change it up again. If what Dave said is I'm sure the case, and all of a sudden, Moxley and Jericho, who maybe weren't going to be on the show, now have to be on the show. So everything just feels impromptu, and it feels unfortunate for me. For Tony, is just like, yeah, I had all these great plans and I can't do them again, which has got to be frustrating for him. But I said this on We're Live, Pal, and I'll say it here. I think he has a great resource in that company for someone who has had to go through stuff like this for a large part of his career, and that is Jim Ross. Jim Ross was head of talent relations for probably 10 years. I don't know exactly what the time frame is. And he actually had to deal with Stone Cold Steve Austin and Triple H and The Rock. And then WCW comes over, and then he's got to deal with Flair, and he's got to deal with Hogan, and he's got to deal with Kevin Nash. So you have
Was he the talent relations when Punk was there?
Probably pretty early in Punk, not when Punk was a top guy, I'm sure. I think that'd have been Johnny Ace.
You're 100% correct. Tony Khan should definitely lean on JR's experience with all this and what he should do.
I guess I saw a report, and it was from I will find this guy's name, because I think he works for DAZN, I believe. And I don't even know how to pronounce his last name correctly, and I apologize. He's not going to hear this, but his name is Steven Mulhausen, and he writes for DAZN. I usually see him doing boxing stuff, but
yeah. I was reading his tweets.
Yeah, I think he's been doing a lot more MMA and pro wrestling these days.
Yeah, he did MMA fighting too, right?
I don't know. I actually don't know. It's definitely possible. But he had a tweet. He had a tweet about, I guess Tony Schiavone might be someone who Tony Khan is leaning on, or might be the right hand man, or something like that. So this is the tweet that he wrote. This was earlier in the day. He said, "Not formally an update, but news on Tony Khan. He's really leaned on Tony Schiavone and been told he's now Khan's right-hand man. Schiavone knows all about chaos when he was in WCW and should be a great person to lean on and be a sounding board on Punk Elite Altercation." Now, Tony was there, but I don't that wasn't really his job from what I remember.
Yeah, he didn't even get the executive producer job.
Yeah,
he wanted it, he never got it.
Yeah, I mean, so he's definitely probably had to deal with some of the big personalities, but he didn't deal with them like Jim. And maybe Jim's just like, no, I don't want to deal with all this bullshit.
Yeah.
It could possibly be that as well.
True.
But yeah, so
But sometimes you need to circle the wagons, right? And
yes,
and just kind of pick the brains of everyone's kind of been there. And I'm sure Jim Ross, he's an executive, right? Did he have an executive title?
Yes.
So yeah, he should definitely want to lend his insight and help Tony in the situation. And like I said, I hope everyone kind of come together, because I would suck to, for Punk not to be around, because he always has a strong segment on each show, and I like his work in AEW, and I like to continue to see that. So we'll see what happens. I think suspensions, fines, and some no comments, and then maybe business as usual. But how AEW fans take Punk after this now, right? Do they see him as the villain, right? The hardcore AEW fans talk about, could be split the audience, probably will.
I think Punk may have to make I don't know if he has to make a public statement, but I do think he probably has to have a conversation. There's probably going to be another meeting. And those VPs too, right? Like they were a part of just by being a VP, you kind of have a little bit more of a responsibility to handle things differently than what had happened. Now, who knows that it could have, we don't know the story of who threw the first shot and all that stuff, but ultimately, you hate to see that. And another thing, not only does Tony need some help of people kind of being the eyes and ears for him, and maybe even Vince McMahon was really the bad guy, but he just used other people to be liaisons for information. I mean, he could probably use one of those. Like, why is talent even talking to Tony on a daily basis? They should be talking to this other person.
Yeah.
The other thing though is, man, they really need a locker room leader. There's guys like Jericho and Sting who have just been through everything, right? Imagine the things that Sting has seen in his career.
I wonder if Sting was ever that locker room leader guy.
I mean, he always had Flair, and then Hogan was there, so probably not, right?
We always think of locker room leaders. We always think Undertaker, right? It's always the one that kind of gets talked about. Yeah, sometimes it's not the biggest star. It's the guy that's going to be the final, just a call right straight down the middle. Who's that guy?
Yeah.
Right? I mean, Jericho, he's a master manipulator too. So, you know what I mean? For his benefit. So we'll see. I don't know who that person is, but they have to find someone. What about those liaisons they all gave, right?
One of the liaisons supposedly got in a fight with Ace Steel.
Which one was that? Was that Sanjay Dutt?
So I heard now. I haven't really seen this verified elsewhere, but the first story that came out Sunday night, because I was just getting texts from from the Scrum. I was just getting texts. I'm like, guys, I'm just trying to put up some podcasts and go to sleep, man. And I just keep getting texts about what's going on. And so the first thing that I heard about this fight was two people or two instances. The first one that I heard was Punk and Matt Jackson. And then the second one I heard was Pat Buck and Ace Steel.
Oh yeah, Pat Buck. That's right.
So I think Pat Buck, at least according to Big Dave, I think he was on that list of people who were not allowed or who were not coming to TV on Wednesday. So we'll have more information, I'm sure, tomorrow night on the Fight Game podcast.
Yeah,
and which we will put up once Dynamite is over, and we'll talk about Dynamite. We'll talk more about this stuff, but I wanted to talk about this on this podcast, one, because that Raw sucked, and we will probably go through it really quickly. But the other reason is because this story is going to constantly change and be updated.